Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is Sandra Ro, the CEO of the Global Blockchain Business Council, here today with an amazing institution, an amazing person who's going to spend the next hour with us really unpacking something very critical, which is a mission around helping the poorest of the poor. I want to thank Ocean Elders, our partner in collaboration with the series, Gigi Brisson, and many others who are in the background making sure that things run smoothly. I'm just waiting here to see that we've got some participants filing in, but we are going to kick off. Let me start with some housekeeping. First of all, we are very much a collaborative, interactive next 55 minutes or so. So please, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A box and we will get to the questions as quickly as we can. The other thing that I would like for everyone to just be aware, if you would like, you could raise your hand as well and actually speak in if you would like. But again, if you just want to ask the question, put it in the Q&A box. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Rossana Polastri to please introduce herself and explain a little bit about the organization IFAD itself. I have to say, I'm only beginning to unpack the amazing work that IFAD is doing. So with that, let me welcome Rossana. Thank you very much for your time. I believe you are sitting in Peru right now. So no, you are not.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Thank you very much for this invitation. I am the regional director for the Latin American Caribbean region in IFAD. Actually, I'm based in Rome, so I'm home from Rome, and I'm very much happy to be with you. It's afternoon for us right now. So let me tell you a little bit about what is IFAD. IFAD is an international financial institution. It's a specialized United Nations agency, and it's based in Rome, the UN's Food and Agricultural Hub. In fact, we are based in Rome together with FAO and also with the World Food Program. IFAD was founded in 1978, and since then we have a clear mandate to invest in rural people, empowering them to increase their food security, improve nutrition of their families, and increase their incomes. As such, we help them build resilience, expand their business, and take charge of their own development through the projects that we finance. Since 1978, we have provided about 22 billion in grants and low interest loans to projects that have reached an estimated 512 million people all over the world. And in LAC, we currently have an ongoing portfolio of 33 projects in 17 different countries with a total value of $1.6 billion. We normally don't work together. We have an engagement with several other institutions in the financial development world. So we co-finance with others like the World Bank, like the IDB, the Green Climate Fund, and the like. IFAD, I have to say that it has something particular. It's the only financial institution that focuses on the rural poor. In fact, our mandate is to invest in the rural poor. And we usually focus investment programs in agriculture, but now we're also expanding our operations to fishery, tourism, financial inclusion, among others. We work mostly with smallholders, and we engage with farmers associations as well as with indigenous groups to make sure that when we design the investment projects, we are reflecting the priorities and needs of these groups. We understand poverty as a multidimensional issue, and we want to make sure that all our investment programs are designed in partnership with the recipient countries, and we use what we call the mainstreaming themes. This means that our programs have a very strong gender focus. They aim to be nutritional sensitive. We also aim to target the youth in the rural areas, and our projects are climate sensitive.
Wonderful. You've said a lot there. We're going to unpack some of that in a bit more detail, but I want to actually turn to you because one of the benefits of being able to spend time with leaders from around the world like yourself is to actually get to know you and also to inspire the young people who look at, how did you get to the place that you are now? So I just want to highlight, you were appointed Director for Latin American and the Caribbean in January 2019 after serving as Peru's Vice Minister for Finance and Executive Board Member of the Bank of the Nation of Peru. And I'm not going to butcher the Spanish, I would leave it. How did your previous leadership positions lead you to IFAD? And when you think of it in the context of young people who are beginning their careers, how did your career develop? If you could just walk us through a little bit about, how you ended up in IFAD, but just some of your positions previously and some of the key skills that you've learned that helped you along the way.
Very happy to do so, and I hope I will inspire some young people, especially women. In fact, I would like to go a little bit further back.
Yes.
I worked almost 20 years at the World Bank, and after that, I was invited to go back to my country and to work at the Ministry of Finance as an advisor. But then it turned to be a more important position when I was appointed Deputy Minister. So I think the combination of having worked in the World Bank and in the Ministry of Finance give me both sides and give me the perspective that allows you to understand where is the perfect intersection between a government and a multilateral development bank like the World Bank. I always knew that I wanted to be an economist, and I always knew that I wanted to work in development. So I spent several years at the World Bank, but at some point I understood that on the other side, you didn't have the clear understanding on how public policies were implemented. So for me, working in the public sector was something that was extremely valuable for me as a professional. I think it makes you a lot more humble and gives you an idea of what the role of a financial institution is. You are just one part of a much bigger agenda in a country, and your role is to contribute in the best way to achieve the development objectives. So coming to IFAD with both experiences give me an edge, I believe. And my vision is that our program in the LAC region is to become the partner of choice for supporting the agenda of the rural poverty reduction. And for that, we need to learn to listen, and as I said, to be humble. We are at the service of our country clients, and we need to be ready to respond with efficient and cost-effective programs. Nowadays, with COVID and the impact this has had on the economies, but more important on the life of the poor, we need to be agile and slim, yet at the same time, we need to come with some innovative solutions. I also think that my experience as a Vice Minister of Finance and a director of the National Development Bank prepared me for this position. National development banks operate very much like a private sector, so I was having the ideal combination, multilateral, government, and sort of private sector, and this opportunity to work in IFAD, where we work with the poorest of the poor and we reach where some other institutions cannot reach, was for me something very much appealing. I also learned from working in the public sector and in the Ministry of Finance that evidence-based solutions, cost-effective and innovative solutions are very much attractive, and the international finance community should be ready to bring that in order to support countries in their development agenda.
Oh, thank you for that. It's tremendous to hear. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the problems that you're seeing in the market, in the region, I should say, sorry.
Sandra, can you repeat the question? It was a little bit.
Is my sound going? Does it sound better now? Sorry about that.
Yes, sounds better, yes.
Great. I was wondering, could you talk to us a little bit more about, particularly in the region, and you did mention, obviously, the pandemic is adding even more pressure, some of the problems that you see for this small shareholder farmer? Because not everyone in the audience, a lot of people in the audience will be from the tech sector or for business. They don't necessarily know what are the problems and what are some of the challenges that small shareholder farmers have today. And then if you could also then lead us into how maybe some technologies are helping to maybe solve some of those problems.
Yes, most of our projects focus on the value chain component, and one of the most important contributions we can make is not only building capacity on supporting the organization of smallholders and help them develop their business plans to be financed, but make sure that they access the market. So one of the things that worries more, and where we have, or where we see that there is a bridge that we have to jump and to connect, is the part connecting the producer with the market and the consumer. And I think that nowadays with COVID, with all what has happened with the lockdowns, this became very much evident. And we also realized that we cannot rely only on interventions that are tailored for a particular case, but we need to start thinking a much more in a comprehensive and a holistic approach. So the blockchain came up to our attention, and in fact, as I mentioned before, that what IFAD is doing, we also realize in IFAD that we need to modernize ourselves and be agile and slim. And we also realize that ICT for development is something that has very much appetite in the countries we work with. So IFAD has just recently launched the IFAD Innovation Network as a community of practice, where we look for exchanges for solutions and innovations. So that's why I was very much interested to come here and to have a conversation with you, because we are firm believers that blockchain can bring solutions and can help us achieve the development objectives in our project. You know? I also think that we need to be mindful that these technologies can sound a little bit intimidating for the clients that we work with. So we believe that there's much needed to have this community in which can we communicate the benefits and how blockchain technologies can be used in the type of projects that IFAD does. We also have to be mindful that we work with the poorest of the poor. Our countries and our clients, which borrow from us, want always to make sure that what they are investing is going to make sure that there are going to be results. And as I said before, the issue of evidence-based policies and techniques is something extremely important. So I think that we have a long way to understand and to transmit to the clients how can blockchain be used in their public policies for rural development.
Thank you so much for that. And we are going to ask you a bit more about the blockchain piece of this, but you've got a few questions that have already started coming in, and actually a lot of it is related to the pandemic. Surprise, surprise, right? How has the pandemic situation, and I know you've already discussed it a little bit, but how has the pandemic situation changed your work? Like, has it actually changed the way IFAD interacts with either your farmer base or the way you interact with others? What have you needed to change, if anything?
Well, first of all, I think like everyone, we had to go back to be remote. We were not able to do the visits and the missions and supervision of our projects the way we used to do. So we switched to remote work. But going to something more of substance, what we did was we look at our projects and identify in each one of them and talk with the government authorities about how we can repurpose some of the funding to make sure that we can help them address the issues and also lessen the impact of COVID. Just being disconnected from the markets because of the lockdown was a big shock. You know, we need to understand that COVID is a supply and demand shock. It has meant a huge shock, and I don't think has happened before, I think in the 40, 50 years ago. So we did repurpose our projects where we could do it. We also realized that at the beginning, the impact of COVID was stronger in the urban areas, not so much in the rural areas because of population density, and also that the farmers can become part of the solution. And we also started noticing an appetite for this trend that was before, from farm to table, and from and also on a nutritional trend, also how to start taking care of yourself, etc. So we thought that small farmers can be part of the solution and shouldn't be left outside. Yes. But you need to organize them, and you need to bring them together, and you need to register information about them somewhere. So that's how, again, the light bulb comes about blockchain.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I love to hear that. I mean, it's obviously a very challenging time, but then, you guys have identified a trend, which is farm to table, which absolutely, I agree with you. I think that will increase and grow as a trend, and wellness and taking care of yourself and knowing the origin of your food. I think also is an appealing piece of information that more and more consumers are asking. If I may ask, in terms of the young people in especially the Latin American region that you cover, do you find that the young people are adopting, and particularly ones who are also farming, are they adopting technology more quickly, or do you see, what trends do you see, if at all? Are young people all leaving farming? Are they still farming?
Yes, we find that young people are still farming, and in fact, we have some youth center projects, like in the Dominican Republic, for example. We understand that some of the youth want to have like startups, so we try to design our projects in a way that they have a window where they can knock in if they have an idea for a startup, and we can provide some sort of capacity training and support for developing the ideas. It's very important to make sure that our projects can support jobs and generate income. Otherwise, the young population will leave the rural areas, and the situation of someone migrating from rural to urban areas, it's even worse when you face difficulties. So we very much support projects that are focused on the youth. And of course, we do find much more reception in terms of using different technologies.
Amazing. Critical work. And I think we need to figure out how to make farming cool, because it can be a very cool thing, especially once you add ag tech to the mix. You've got a bunch of questions here. I'm going to try to get through a couple more, if that's all right, Rossana.
Yeah.
How do you collaborate with local groups to ensure that your projects and efforts are adding and not redundant or duplicative? It must be a challenge. There's probably lots of different groups on the ground. How do you normally interact with local groups to help, or do you have your own people on the ground?
We have people in the ground, but we also interact with farmers associations. We interact with cooperatives. And of course, we interact with the Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Environment or Social Inclusion, depending on each one of the countries. So we make sure that we are aligned, we are not duplicating the work, but we also make sure that we are coordinating with other multilaterals and make sure that we try to target areas in which others might be investing in infrastructure, let's say irrigation, for example, large irrigation, and we are targeting their small producers. So by working together, our impact is larger. So it's not only with the local, but also with others participating and supporting in those areas. And we have our own internal guidelines for stakeholders consultations, and we make sure that we do all these consultations. As I mentioned at the beginning, we include farmers association as well as indigenous groups and originary groups.
Oh, that's fantastic. Absolutely important. You spoke a little bit about in your introduction that you've widened your mandate not just to farmers in the land sense, but also to fisheries and other areas. Was there a particular reason for that? Is that a strong need for support in those areas? Could you explain a little bit more about I'm not familiar with those industries?
Yes, it's we work more on a demand basis. I mean, we are at the service of the countries. So we sit with the government authorities and discuss about what is the best way to address the challenges they have, where they have the priorities in which they need to invest. And in some cases, for example, we have like in Nicaragua, we have a project for the name is Nica Pesca, and we are starting a project. It's going to be full fishery in Haiti. We're still thinking about how are we going to design it, but we call it the Blue Economy Project. We believe that we cannot narrow rural to only agriculture. We find sometimes interest on supporting other type of productive activities. Latin America also has the whole small island in development, in the Caribbean, which are very much dependent on tourism as well as importing food. So we also need to be flexible and think about tourism as a way of supporting. So far, we haven't started a project that has a strong component in tourism, but we keep our minds open and flexible to serve our clients. But basically, we are demand-driven.
That is a good thing to know. And you are going with obviously being flexible as an organization depending on what the needs are. So that's really important. You mentioned also, and I'm so happy to hear when leaders, particularly women in powers of position, want to uplift others, young people and women in particular. When you think about the region, my understanding is that a good proportion of the farmers are actually women. Is that true? And that entire families tend to also farm. Can you shed a little bit of light for those who are not as familiar? What is generally the makeup of farming in the region?
Well, in fact, I don't have the exact number, so I am not going to throw you an exact number, but I haven't seen a huge difference in terms of who is farming. Where we have a little bit more of challenges when we bring a project to convince women to come and work in the project. So to take them away from the standard subsistence farming model, because when we come with innovative solutions, and we come with solutions that need to be sustainable and make sure that once you lift them out of poverty, this intervention is sustainable. There is there's no reverse, no? So in the first year of our projects, we bring up all the farmers that we are targeting and start working with them. We do what we call, we build social capital. And where we have a little bit of a challenge is bringing women to be in this part of these groups. But it's not that we see a difference who farms or who doesn't farm. It's the bringing them in to do something different. And I think that we have a commitment, a very strong commitment since I joined IFAD, and also being a woman and also working in the Latin American region. I thought, no, this is not possible. We need to have more women in our projects, and that is a commitment we have, and we are working that way. And in fact, in the one project that they mentioned in the fishery one in Nicaragua, we have a target that, if I am not mistaken, of 60% of the beneficiaries being women. So we are, putting ourselves
you are making
some
progress.
Important targets. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. And that brings me to another point about education. Do you think education and explaining to the farmers all of this tech is necessary? And how does IFAD go about doing that? Do you normally try to educate when you're launching a program yourselves, or do you rely on others? How does the education piece work?
Well, we work in the education. I wouldn't call it education. It's more a capacity building. We rely on local groups or agents or firms to help us to go by the capacity building. Sometimes you find clients, countries that they do have their own institutions that can help us do this capacity building. I think one of the most important parts that IFAD does is not only the investment and the financing of business plans of small farmers. Is this a part about building the social capital? That doesn't matter what happens, any shock can come and hit you. You can lose your land, you can have a drought, you can have, the COVID, but the social capital that we have built together will not disappear with a shock. And I would like to mention one thing that it was very moving for me when I attended the closing of a project. And there was this young woman that came into the podium, and she thanked the Ministry of Agriculture for allowing her to participate in the project. And she said, I have not gone to the university, but the university came to me with the project. And to me, it was like, this is intangible. We cannot measure it, how many times I increase your income. But what she just said is extremely important. And we cannot measure social capital, but we invest a lot. And I think, and in fact, we have some anecdotal evidence, and we should do a little bit more research, that those farmers, beneficiaries or households where we have been working for years through IFAD projects, they were much more prepared to cope with the shock of COVID. But that's a pending homework we have to do to run some studies and some regressions and show that by investing in this social capital, you prepare them better to cope with shocks.
Oh, wow. That's actually, that's a study I would like to read about. That's actually really interesting. I would not have imagined that. But we have a couple more questions here. And we're going to go back to the blockchain component of obviously many other technologies that you use. But one person did ask, would it cost farmers anything if you apply a blockchain-based solution? I would imagine that if you're going to have a blockchain-based solution, the farmer doesn't even need to know that it operates on a blockchain. Frankly, it just needs to function properly. Do you see a cost to the farmers to have to use something on a blockchain infrastructure?
No, I wouldn't see a cost. Where I will see is the cost in the project itself, when you need to contract who is going to store the information that you have through blockchain. I think it's called the ledger, and that has to be a cost in the project, and also discuss with the government. I have had a couple of approaches with government authorities and mentioned the blockchain, and there is some perception about this being extremely expensive and not reachable. And as you know, we work with the poorest country, so it's like, is this something that we could use or not? So that's why this conversation today, I think, is going to help us. I don't know if now, but in the near future, disappear these myths that this is very expensive.
Yeah, no, Rossana, if you ever need assistance with that, our organization and our network would be very happy to explain, step by step, why it's actually not costly. Well, provided you use open source and open networks, but we can have a separate conversation about that. And that's another thing. You lead me to another question, which is, we've been asking you all sorts of things about what is IFAD doing, what is IFAD doing for the community. What can the blockchain community and the tech community do for you and for IFAD? What can we do to help the poorest of the poor through your mechanism? We don't know, necessarily the people, we don't know the intricacies of the problems of the localities, but we know our tech, we have resources, we have lots of motivated people with good hearts. So could you, if you happen to have any thoughts, and this is certainly a longer conversation we will have together, but how can the tech community in particular help you and IFAD achieve certain things? What is the best way to collaborate?
I have been thinking about this a lot, even since the COVID tragedy, I will call, or pandemic started, and I think that our business model, the one on the value chain, it's one of the perfect candidates to use blockchain, because one of the things that the consumer or the market wants to know, wants to have assurance of the quality of the project, of the produce, how the produce has been, about the implications in terms of environment, perhaps who are the ones producing, are these women, are these men, are these youth, etc. And that kind of information is very important, because now I see consumers much more sophisticated and much more concerned about the impact of consumption. When they purchase something, they want to know what is their impact, what is their blueprint. And that's why I am very much interested in finding out if from my stock of portfolio there are projects in which we can implement and use, more than implement, use blockchain techniques. We finance a lot of producers that produce cocoa and coffee, and I think that these are two types of products that are very much using blockchain. Then there is another area that we start working, which is payments for environmental services. And this is what we wanted to expand the project. We started with a pilot, and the concern from the government was how we make sure that 5 or 10 years after, this conservation, this land conservation, doesn't go back to previous practices. How we make sure that we monitor this, and we register the information, we register the land, we register what has been done for conservation. And then I thought that, you need something that assures transparency and make sure that the information is not manipulated, and information remains without change through the years. So I thought that also there is a market and a potential in payment for environmental services. Then we are starting also a project with the government of Argentina in agroecology. And in fact, they themselves thought about the use of blockchain for the project to be able to register the use of agroecologist practices. So this transparency and this information for the consumer is extremely important. But I also think that information that is registered in something like blockchain has a value. And as you know, we work with small farmers, and small farmers not necessarily have access to credit by themselves, no? Unless we come with as IFAD, but we cannot be there forever.
Right.
And agriculture or other similar activities are seen by banks as risky, and they need to understand what the client, their situation and their capacity or their creditworthiness. And perhaps blockchain, through the registering all the interventions or all the work we do, can have this information that then it's put all together, and a farmers association all together, they can access a credit. So that's another way we are thinking. And I have to be very honest, we are a development specialists, and we are not engineers or, I mean, so for us, this is like, we understand that it can be a solution, but we need to understand better how the solution works. So I will invite all of you to contact us. You can go to our webpage. We are a very much decentralized institution, so we have offices in several countries. We have one in Peru. Maybe that's why you thought I was in Peru. I would love to be in Peru. So you can contact us, and we can certainly get together to think about how can we partner with you. We partner with private sector for some of the implementation of our projects, and we think that they are an important actor in development solutions.
Thank you for that, Rossana. And for those who are not already seeing in the chat, there are a number of links that you can go directly to that Rossana mentioned on the IFAD website, as well as the IFAD network. Please reach out, and her point about public-private sector collaboration is key. At the end of the day, you know what the problems are, you know the actors in the space, and if we can marry that with solutions that the private sector and good actors can bring to the table, a lot of good can come of it. So yes, absolutely. Thank you for providing some of those links now. I have, this is from A. Knoll, and I apologize. I can't copy and paste it into the chat. So whoever A. Knoll is, if you want to put the link into the chat. It's not a question, it's actually a comment for you, Rossana. I'm gonna just read it. Interesting. Rosanna's comment about tourism, Alting, AWLTING, in Taiwan started as a food and ag marketplace, which enabled consumers to buy directly from small shareholder farmers and pay with Bitcoin, and now offers both marketplace and tourism services, all on their blockchain-based platform. Maybe that's something you guys could take a look at. I can send you guys.
Wonderful.
I want to thank A. Knoll for pointing that out of Taiwan. I'm going to go back to questions now. So, you know, I think we've touched upon some of the challenges of today. There's a question for you about what are the biggest challenges for IFAD in the coming years, let's just say 1 to 2 years. What are some of the things that you think about are just going to be very critical? We heard, by the way, from the World Food Program, who indicated to us when we spent time and interviewed them, and as we know, this year's Nobel Peace Prize recipients, that they're expecting 100 million plus increase on top of the already several hundred million people who are going to be subject to a horrific food insecurity and famine. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing from an IFAD standpoint that you'd like to share with us?
Yes. we are seeing this, and they're not only the result, at least for the Latin American region, that the result of only COVID. We are also seeing the impact of climate change. We just had the Hurricane Eta in the Central America, and it seems that the second one is coming and is around the corner. So we need to start thinking about the food systems, since we are investing in that sector, that are sustainable and that are resilient, and that we need to start incorporating in our practices or solutions for poverty reduction via climate or environmental practices that are responsible and that make sure that we are not damaging more and creating this perverse situation. No? It is true that food insecurity will increase very much. We find as a challenge the short run with the medium term, in the sense that in the short run, most of the governments want to address the economic impact, and either their stimulus packages or fiscal packages, they look much more into policies or measures that are addressed more to the urban sector. So we feel that IFAD has to play the role of the voice of the rural poor, and that we have to bring the voice not only as a segment in the society or in the productive sector, but also as a solution. It can be part of the solution. So that we find in ourselves can be an opportunity to help bring in solutions that are not only addressed and directed to mitigate the food insecurity that will happen, but also we want farmers to be actors, to be part of the solution, to be empowered.
Yeah.
And we don't want to see them as in a paternalistic way, or we want to have them in subsistence. That is not our vision. Our vision is we need to build food systems that are resilient and in which we address both issues, the climate and the poverty.
I was just wondering, further to that point, if we're going to really look at food systems, it's one thing to look at, the Latin American region, but at the end of the day, the food systems are also global. Is there a forum right now, or does IFAD lead this forum on multiple countries discussing how resiliency will need to be shored up, in light of all the climate change issues, in light of the fact that the farmers are the ones who bear the brunt of all this climate change impact? Is more needed, more coordination. I would imagine the UN is on the forefront of this.
Exactly. Yes, in fact, we produce yearly what is called the Rural Development Report. And this time, the previous one was the rural youth, and this time our project, the topic is going to be food systems. So we are very much aware that this is an area that we have to work, but not alone. We need to work as part of the United Nations and work jointly with FAO as well as WFP, which we are already doing.
Fantastic. I had to mute just because I've got very noisy New York City fire trucks going through, so I don't know if you guys can hear that, so apologies for the noise. I'm going to just take the last 10 minutes or so that we have, Rossana, and talk about entrepreneurship, particularly encouraging young entrepreneurs in innovation, not only in agri-tech, but in general. What do you think are some of the things that are needed if you were to talk to social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general in the LATAM region? What do you see that are positive things that are happening today? And what do you think is also needed to help really create a generation of social entrepreneurs who will solve some of these critical problems, particularly in America?
I think that the space and the role for the private sector to partner with institutions like IFAD and as well with the public sector and the government, it's very important to come together and look for these solutions. And I think that the younger generations are much more concerned about the impact of their interventions and the impact of their solutions in what is related to climate and to resilience. So I will encourage very much to participate in this type of in this type of engagements. Nowadays, you need solutions that are coming in a very timely way. We don't have the luxury to wait and to design something very complex to get together and have consultations here and there. We need these agile brains that can bring us tailored solutions and slim solutions, not complex. And that is something that new generations and young entrepreneurs can contribute a lot. And in fact, we recently had a hackathon in Bolivia, Peru, and I think on Honduras maybe, where we invited entrepreneurs to offer solutions for a platform, for an e-trade platform. And we were, pleasantly surprised to see the age range and the fact that also several women participated. So we see that the appetite is there. My recommendation is never be shy. Try it. I know that the startups are the thing for you, for the young, and it's something that can really change the world. And it doesn't have to be seen as something that is in parallel and that cannot bring into development in the rural areas.
Thank you so much for that. And I think social entrepreneurship is on the rise, and entrepreneurship tied to focusing on climate change and impact to society and community is critically important. So I think, for any of you who didn't know about IFAD before, now you do. And if you are in the agri-tech sector, I highly recommend that you reach out. Obviously, do your homework, learn about IFAD, and then if it makes sense, reach out to Rossana and her team to look at some of the problems that she's already mentioned and uncovered, and see solutions can be built. Because ultimately, as you say, we've said this again and again throughout this hour, private, public sector collaboration can yield really great results sometimes. And both sides really do need each other when you're talking about large scale systemic problems and finding solution sets around that. And on a slightly different topic, when people think about farming and they think about farmers in particular, there tends to be this sort of like image that people have of the farmer in the field, which is all great, but could you explain to us, it's not really company or corporation level farming that is the problem in particular Latin America. The problems are that not enough resources and help are given to actually the family run smaller farmers. Is that a correct prediction? Or
yes, it depends on certain the country. We cannot say that. I cannot advise it. There are countries that have a very strong policy in the agricultural sector, and they have important practices in place and programs that support the small holders and family farming. No? Most of these countries are perhaps at a higher level of development. Costa Rica, I can mention one of them. We just joined the OECD. But there are other countries where they understand that there is a need to invest in smallholders and family farming, but they don't have the knowledge and the solutions in place, and that's why they come to us and we work with them. But it is true that it's not easy. Small farmers or family farming are scattered, so that's why we need to put together the farmers organizations or work through cooperatives because of the problem of scale. The problem of scale makes the possibility of generating an income stream that lifts them out of poverty more difficult. So that's why we need to work in the first or 2 years or when we implement our projects in building this social capital and building these organizations in which they get all the training and knowledge for making smart decisions regarding farming. But there is a lot to be done. It's true, but it depends on which country we are talking about. It's not, for example, the Dominican Republic is a country that's very much strong in rural policies, and they have a lot of experience, and they have for a long time have been working towards strengthening and having rural transformation. Other countries where the geography is not that easy, the Andean countries, farmers are much more scattered, so it's not that easy to address those issues. So there's where we come and work with them together.
And then on the other side of the spectrum, sorry, can you hear me?
No.
My microphone. Hello?
Hello, now I can hear you, yes.
Okay, hopefully it will not. 1 second. All right, I'm going to try to speak. On the other side of the spectrum, we have large companies farming. Do you work with them as well?
We don't work in the sense that we invest with them. No, the way IFAD works is we provide a loan to the government, and through that loan we finance small holders or farmers organizations or households. So we don't work with large firms. However, we do have a private sector window in which we can have we can finance some investments for small and medium-sized projects, and these can be in the value chain linked or have what they call smart contracts with larger companies. So it's in an indirect way we work with them, but we don't work in the sense that we finance them. What we finance, if we finance private sector, it's more the small and medium size group.
Right, right, that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying. It looks like my mic is not doing too well. Is this any better? All right, I might, I hope my laptop's not in meltdown mode. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, we're actually towards the very end, and I'm gonna leave one more question to Rossana to wrap this up. Rossana, we wanna leave in a hopeful and positive note. When you think about the positive projects, and you've mentioned some of the positive impact IFAD has had on farmers' lives, what do you see as opportunity in the middle of this pandemic? It can be tech, could be not tech, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But what are something that we can do that you see are positives that can, as we come out of this pandemic, that will be more positive? And maybe it is about our focus, our heightened focus on climate change. Maybe it's where we need to spend more time thinking about food systems. But can you just leave us some final thoughts on some areas where you feel like we could really, if we work together, we could make some really profound positive change for the world?
Well, I think that the most important aspect or the opportunity we have now after the pandemic is that we can put the resilient food systems at the forefront, and the discussion about how to build food systems that are environmentally neutral is very important. Before, these were discussions that look more like academic. Today, what I see, the forums that I participate, you really see a change. You really see actions that need to be implemented, and not wait 6 months, 9 months, 1 year to decide what we do. So I think that that opportunity has arisen for the area where I work, which is in rural transformation. So that's an opportunity that the need, the urgency is there. And we have a role, we have not only a role, but we have acquired knowledge, more than 40 years working on this. So we can provide important inputs and be part of this world movement, in which coordinating with many institutions and also with the private sector, as you said, the collaboration is extremely important. I think also that ICT for development, in different ways, artificial intelligence, GIS, blockchain, it has to be one of the arms, the instruments for delivering results in the ground. And we need to demystify the ICT for development. We need to make an effort to ensure that these are not strange things and black boxes that we don't know how it works. And there is an educational agenda pending that we need to bring into. So the fact that we are together having a conversation, that the fact that we have so many people that are in this community of practice of blockchain attending, I hope I have open their enthusiasm to come to us and help us demystify this aspect of ICT for development. Sometimes you think that it's very costly. This is only for developed countries, for high-income countries, and that's not true. I think that there are certain technologies that we can use, and they can be cost-effective and not expensive.
You are absolutely correct on so many fronts. Thank you so much, Rossana. The urgency is there. The problems we know. We need to work globally together, collaboratively. Public-private sector collaboration is on the rise. And so everyone who's joined, thank you so much. There are many folks out there who are absolutely focused on social entrepreneurship, dedicating their time and efforts to solving problems and working with groups like IFAD and beyond. We encourage you to reach out. GBBC itself are going to constantly be looking for opportunities to shine light on organizations like IFAD. We want to thank Gigi Brisson at Ocean Elders again for support, Gladys over at IFAD for all of the help on the coordination side, and Rossana again for your time. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I hope this is not the first and the last time we have a conversation. And please reach to us, and we need ideas, we need young entrepreneurs, we need fresh ideas. So here we are.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Handing over to Ocean Elders and GBBC.